Hi, I'm Cameron Harold, the founder of the Second in Command podcast and the COO Alliance. But today I want to talk to you about a course that I just launched for all of your leaders and managers. It's called investinyourleaders.com. We all know that building a business is really, really hard. And the hardest part, you guessed it, the people. So I'm here to help you fix that. In this course, investinyourleaders.com, I teach the core skills that all managers need to really excel in leadership. In each module, I walk them through proven methodologies and frameworks in hiring, interviewing, situational leadership, coaching, delegation, and classroom teaching, running effective meetings and one-on-ones, as well as time management, project management, handling conflict, and email management. Over the course of a total of 4 hours with 41 videos, written information, pre and post tests, they also get lifetime access. And I'm also so confident that they'll love the course that I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. So come check it out while you're listening to this podcast. It's investinyourleaders.com and sign up your managers today.
Welcome to the Second in Command podcast, produced by the COO Alliance and brought to you by its founder, Cameron Harold. In the Second in Command podcast, we talk to top COOs who share the insights, strategies, and tactics that made them the chief behind the chief. And now, here's your host, Cameron Harold.
Our guest today is Christy Kim, the COO of Persona, the identity infrastructure company backed by Index Ventures and Co2 that offers businesses the building blocks to create personalized identity verification experiences for any use case. In her role, Christy oversees Persona's business and operations function, including sales, marketing, customer success, and operations. She's leading the team toward the company's mission to be the identity layer of the internet for customers including Square, Sonder, Brex, Udemy, Gusto, BlockFi, Coursera, and AngelList. Previously, Christy was at LinkedIn, where she was the head of business development for LinkedIn Learning Solutions. So, Christy, welcome to the Second in Command podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You've got a pretty cool bio, pretty cool base of experience. I want to talk about LinkedIn a little bit. I want to find a little bit about Persona. I think I'm like member number 200,000 or something on LinkedIn, which was early, but still feels so late because my co-author for my book Free PR was member number 7,000. I'm like, how did you know about it? Like, were you at like a dinner party with a couple of tech geeks? Like, what the hell? What was it like at LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is such a lovely place to work, honestly. They are so in touch with just the talent industry, which has, become so different in the past 10 to 15 years, where people really see talent as a competitive advantage and a really core part of building a business. So I think as an employee there, it was really great. Like, they are really in touch with just how to think about engaging talent and retaining talent. One thing about, and again, it is such a great mission also to really be giving everyone economic opportunity. I'll be honest though, LinkedIn was so big when I got there. I mean, it was 15,000 employees. I got there right after the Microsoft acquisition. And my boss there had been one of the first 100 people at LinkedIn. And that really, that really inspired me in terms of like, then I went to Persona afterwards. I thought he would talk about what it was like when LinkedIn was, just totally a startup. And that really spoke to me and made me think I really want to be part of that building phase, like really early when it's just chaotic and there's so much stuff to do and everyone's kind of just doing everything.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. Because when I got there, it was just, it's a full on, it's just so big now. So it's just very different. But
it certainly helped shape you, I would imagine. Because coming in, did you join Persona as the COO or did you?
I did.
Okay. So LinkedIn helped shape you into that role then. I mean, you didn't just like build your skill set in the COO role, right? So
no, totally. And I think, one of the great opportunities I had there was to kind of build a function from scratch and realizing how much I loved doing that. And how much I loved, even though it was like, there's no playbook yet, that's exactly what I like doing is figuring it out and especially the kind of go to market and business development side of things. Like, how do we figure out our first customers? Who does it make sense? Who does our product make sense for, et cetera? So I love that stuff. And LinkedIn also really shaped me in terms of, I referenced this earlier, thinking about how important people are. The people you bring on. And, as you know, when you're a really early stage startup, it's everything. It's still everything for Persona is the team. And thinking really carefully about, and really actually just thinking about, is this a good fit for you? And is this a good fit for us? Not just like trying to sell people and get them to join. And then, maybe it's not the best thing for them. So really thinking reciprocally about that.
So what was it that attracted you over at Persona then to leave LinkedIn and come over to Persona? What was it that grabbed you, and how many people were there when you started?
Great question. So I think I was the third person. It's hard to remember now. I was the third person. And the answer is actually Rick and Charles. So I met Rick through my sister, who worked with Rick at Square. So it's funny because, she actually worked with a lot of, now we have a lot of X Squares at Persona. And I had met Rick through her previously, just socially. She'd always told me he's a really smart entrepreneurial person. And then when he started Persona, he said, okay, I need someone on the business side to her. And she said, why don't you meet my sister? And so I met him and Charles. And honestly, Cameron, it was so small that I was like, I can't join this company. This is so too small,
Yeah. Your friends and parents must have thought you were crazy.
Completely. And they said, things are going so well at LinkedIn and it's such a great company. Why would you leave? And I thought, yeah, I see what you're saying. But every time I talk to Rick and Charles,
why would I stay?
They're just very genuine. And it's a rare thing to meet people and have the kind of feeling of trust that I had with both of them. And I do believe that in any work environment, but especially a startup, that is by far the most important thing. Because you don't even know what's going to happen and what's going to come for you all. But you know that if you trust each other, you can work through it.
I think especially in the COO, CEO role, though, because I think you really are that yin and yang to each other, that more than any other C-level executive, the CEO needs to know that you can come to them with the bad stuff and the real shit. And really, it's kind of like the emperor's new clothes, right? Like you can tell them what's really going on.
I totally agree.
So how did you know that the trust was there, or was it just felt? Was it through your sister and the relationships, like knowing them as friends, or was it
No, that was definitely helpful, right? She's worked with them. She's worked with Rick a long time. And you really learn a lot about someone from that. But I think also Rick and Charles, the trust was actually, I'll tell you, I had a moment when I first met them where I was like, I think these guys are onto something. And I think we're in the same kind of value zone, which is that Rick and Charles are both by training engineers, and they're very good engineers. And one of the first things they said to me when we first met was like, even though this is a technical product and even though we're engineers, we like Persona, in order to succeed, needs an amazing, stellar team. And that team has to be on the sales side. It needs to be marketing, customer success, engineers, design. But the way that they thought, from day one, they were like, we need an amazing team. They were not like, we're going to do it because we're such brilliant engineers. And then everyone else is kind of an afterthought. They were so focused on the team from day one. And that made me think, okay, you guys, that's what I think too. So I felt like, wow, even though honestly they did so much of the building early on, they really never ever thought, this company is going to succeed because of engineering or because of the product. It has to be an all-star team across the board.
But isn't that what you hear in the Bay Area every day from every startup? Isn't that like...
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Well, okay.
Or are they more focused on the product itself and they think it's going to be the next coolest thing in the world and they're so product centric?
I think the latter is very popular. And I think especially when you're working with a technical product, that becomes everything.
Right.
And people think like, okay, we just need to build the best product possible. And then like people, customers will come,
employees will come.
Everything will come from that. And Rick and Charles from day one thought, no. Even though we actually alone are quite capable in building, we really need these other people to help us. And just that awareness of things that you can't do and that you can't do things alone, I don't think is actually that. I think that's actually rare in the Valley.
Interesting. It's funny that we were kind of talking about like that, if you build it, they will come. Have you seen the movie Field of Dreams?
No.
So it's about this guy who builds a baseball field diamond or whatever the heck it's called, 100 years ago. And all these all-star ex-dead players come as ghosts and play on this field. And it's an amazing story with Kevin Costner. It's a really cool, like, if you build it, they will come kind of story. But just last week, they played a real Major League Baseball game at a field they built right beside the one that was built for this movie. And it was kind of cool to go, wow, like these are the best of the best of the best playing at like a farmer's field, playing a real MLB. Yeah, I'm not a baseball fan, but it still gave me chills. So,
that's so funny.
So you made the decision to leap. You made the decision because you liked Rick and Charles. You liked their idea around the culture. You liked the idea on maybe there's something with this product. What was it like then leaving a 15,000 person company and walking in as 3?
It was very different. You go from doing very
go for lunch with everybody. Yeah.
And then I was doing, everything from figuring out how to do our taxes, how to file our taxes, to how to get, try to get some new any customers. We didn't have any customers at that time, to, trying to write up some policies around just like employee benefits, like everything. It was so many things, but that is actually what I wanted, because for me, I thought, wow, I really felt from day one, I'm learning so many things, so many different things, and that's how I learn. I learn by doing them. So it was really fun to be able to, like do an office search, as well as go through an outbound, like 100 messages to try to see if we can get some discovery calls on the product side.
So how did they know that you weren't going to be too corporate? How long were you at LinkedIn?
That's a very good question. I was only at LinkedIn a couple of years, and actually before LinkedIn, I was at Coursera.
Okay.
And when I joined, Coursera
was smaller then, right?
Much smaller. It was, still much bigger than Persona, but I joined Coursera when it was like 70 people.
Yeah. So that's still an entrepreneurial environment. So you weren't completely a corporate, Salesforce to Infusionsoft to wherever you were.
Right.
Okay. So they did see some of that. What did you have to unlearn from LinkedIn? As great as it was, and not speaking ill of the company, what did you have to unlearn or let go of that was more corporate and adapt to be more entrepreneurial?
Good question. Well, I realized quickly, there are a lot of things that are not glamorous about the early days of a startup. And that is everyone's job at a startup, like anything that needs doing, anything that will unblock us and let us keep moving forward. We just got to do. And that was, at LinkedIn, I realized in retrospect, there was someone that did everything, like down to the slides that we used in internal meetings.
Yeah.
So I remember I was making like our first pitch deck, and I was like trying to find like higher quality logo images for like the slides at the end that were like
for free with unpaid ones too. You gotta
exactly. And I kept getting the ones with the watermark, and I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
And then Rick was kind of like, okay, like this, the fonts aren't consistent. And I was like, oh man, like someone did this for us at LinkedIn.
Been there.
But yeah, I think just learning that, like your job is now everything we need to do to keep going.
I just got off a call with about 10 COOs from all over the world, and we were just chatting on something. And I said that when I do job postings now, where I have the list of responsibilities, the number one responsibility above the others is always, and other duties, And then they list the real ones because I want them to fucking know, like, if it's not on the list, it's your job, man. Like I would
Totally.
do it too. I would do it too. Right. But yeah, I want it really, really clear that in an entrepreneurial environment, it's like, yeah, let's all grab this and run versus having to teach. So you were already that DNA.
Yeah. And I will say that is another thing I learned quickly about Rick and Charles. And that's why it was easy for us to get started, is we all had that spirit. And really, like, people who joined Persona early were really different. Some was, we had someone who had never had a job before. We had someone who had way more experience than, the three of us combined. We had really different people, but I think the common thread was actually like a passion for like, and other duties, like whatever we need to do, let's just do it.
Do they operate as co-CEOs, or what are their roles today?
Charles oversees engineering, so he's the CTO, and Rick is CEO.
Rick is CEO. But is everyone call them Rick and Charles, or is it just you because you joined and it was Rick and Charles? Like,
that's a good question. I call them that because of what you said when I joined. That was kind of the unit, right. But also, they're best friends. Yeah. And they actually live together as well. So
that was very similar to Brian and I building 1-800-GOT-JUNK. People thought we were like this, married couple. I'm like, no, first, we're both straight. And secondly, we don't live together, but yes, we bicker like a married couple. Yes, we do. We sound exactly like a married couple. All right, let's back up. What's Persona? Give it to us in layman's terms. What's this layer?
Yeah. Persona is a solution that helps companies verify that their users are who they say they are online.
Okay. And how does that happen? What does that mean? What are you doing? Is it like it's not a password? Is it that you're scanning our history, or is it that we have to answer a question? What does it do?
Yeah, good question. You're on to it. The answer is there are many different ways to do that verification. A super popular one is using your government ID and using your face. So a selfie.
Right. Okay. So it's more the login or the setup. So if I'm setting up my crypto account and it needs my driver's license or my passport and a facial recognition, it's using that. It's not so much that it's going to identify that someone's on an Instagram account posting pictures that are me and not them.
It's not the Instagram. Yeah.
It's more security than someone. You're not preventing fraud or people using, or are you?
Oh, we are. I mean, the beauty of Persona and kind of what we're very intentionally trying to do is we do a lot of different use cases. So we do everything from account opening for fintechs to courier or gig economy worker onboarding to online degree, like before you get your online degree, like verifying that you are that person, to like you're locked out of your HR account and you need access to your W-2, very common use case. Very cool. And you move jobs, so you don't have that email anymore. Like everything from account recovery for those types of situations to fraud. I mean, fraud prevention is actually huge across all of our industries because it's just such a problem for almost every kind of online business.
You guys are clearly funded then. How much you've raised money? I won't ask how much, but how have you done Series B, C? Where are you?
We did, yeah. Index led our Series B for $50 million. And so we are a venture funded company.
50 or 15?
50.
50. So real money.
Yeah.
Which is why you've got your Herman Miller Aeron chair at home, which is perfect.
Okay, don't worry, Cameron. This is used. I bought this off Craigslist.
So did I. That's what I did too. I got mine as well. When I was COO at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I rolled in with this Aeron chair in like 2002 or something. I'd had them for years, but Brian's like, oh my God, like people are going to think we're spending money. I'm like, dude, I will tell everyone it's my fucking chair, but like, I'm not going to sit in a shitty chair. I'm sorry. I spent $600 buying it used at some like auction place of somebody who went bankrupt, but they're such good chairs.
They are. And now look, you were ahead of your time because now since we're all working from home, we all kind of need to buy used Aeron chairs.
I just bought one for one of my sales team that he was working from home. And I'm like, dude, you just crushed it this month. And I delivered one. And he's like, oh my God. And he thinks
that's such a great like surprise.
Well, and it costs nothing, right? Like it's so little when you think about the the happiness of the employee and the productivity you're going to gain out of them because they work an extra 20 minutes a day, and the fact
exactly,
they think you're the best employer ever and it costs like $1,200. Like, yeah, it's a rounding error. I really think that people miss the point. All right, so persona, that security layer, you raised money. You were there through the funding then as well. Had they raised money the first round, or were you there for that too?
I was there for the A and the B.
Okay, what was it like for the A?
The A was led by Co2, and Co2 was in our seed too, and it was great. I mean, Rick actually knows Andy, who is the partner at Co2 from a long time ago when Rick was a KP fellow and Andy was at Kleiner Perkins. So we've been very lucky in the funding because it feels like people we know.
Wow. And so it was easy working with them as well. They weren't like intrusive. It
was very easy.
Did it change the culture at all?
No, it did not. And it did not. And I think that's a very interesting question because, I think that is something that, now looking forward, that will be a something we are going to think hard about. But
and it can change the culture in a few ways, right? Like it's the unintended ripple effect. You drop a boulder into a pond, it'll cause ripples, and they can be good ripples or bad, right? So it could either have everyone work harder because they're more excited, or it could give us the resources, which changes the culture because we get to work with smarter people, or it builds the CNBC squawk box, watch the ticker culture, which is toxic, right?
Right. And I mean, I was just going to say one thing I think we've emphasized we call them personas, our employees, because
awesome.
We're all personas, nerds about identity. One thing we've really emphasized is the funding is great and it is necessary to achieve our vision, but don't get it twisted that is how we should be measuring ourselves. Because as you were saying, like I think you can get caught up in it. And especially being in Silicon Valley, you can really get caught up in it. And at the end of the day, it's like, are we building a great product? Are our customers successful with us? Does it add value to them? That's what you need to be focused on versus like any of the venture stuff, even though it is, important.
Are you focusing on making money as a company? Are you focusing on, profitable?
Well, we're focused definitely on revenue growth and customer usage of the platform. But no, we're an early stage, VC company at this point.
Yeah. Which is interesting, right?
Which part?
It's interesting because there's this line to, in business, you learn about the P&L and it's about driving to the bottom line. And it's like, no, that's not what we do. And I get it. Cause like that's, it's not a cavalier 1998.com approach. It's just that you have to use that money to grow as fast as possible and take over the market before anybody else does. And as long as you understand the lifetime value, do you have an eye to profitability? Is it something that you're looking at 5 years out, or is it even discussed?
Honestly, we haven't really discussed that because we're so focused on the product and the customers right now and making sure, and especially at a product-led company, it's, as you said, it's a little bit of a later stage, I think, topic and kind of puzzle. Yeah.
Which is intriguing as hell. So it's funny that you said persona or what did you call it? Persona nerds? Perso nerds. I was speaking with, have you seen the TV show The Vow about the cult Nexium?
Yes, I have seen that.
So I'm friends with Sarah Edmondson, who is one of the central figures. She's the female from Vancouver that was the big recruiter. And it was her and her husband, Nippy, that basically broke the whole cult. And so she and I are friends here in Vancouver. And I was talking to her about she has a podcast with her husband called It's a Bit Culty. And I was saying that we were back channeling talking. And I said, talking about when does a company go too far with its culture? Like when does, and I don't think you're there, but I always worried at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we were such a cult, or Google is such a cult. Like at what point do we go too far that we're manipulating employees? Or at what point are we like, working them so hard that we forget that they're actually humans with lives, with kids, with families, that, that stuff does matter. Do you talk about that stuff at all?
Oh, absolutely. What we always or often talk about when we're talking to candidates before they join and after is there's your life and there's your work. Personas work, and everyone has and should have a life beyond it. And I am really proud of the things that we do to acknowledge that, because I actually think at a lot of startups, and maybe this is what you're referring to, Cameron, people don't really acknowledge
Right.
that you have families that you people have lives that your fellow coworkers don't necessarily know everything about.
Yeah.
And that it affects you and it affects the way you show up, what you can do, all these things. So I like that we're really open about that. Like, this is not a Silicon Valley startup where people are like, you just need to work 12 hours a day and never complain or anything like that. That is not what we subscribe to at all.
Yeah, good. Because I'm very much like, I've got 8 COOs coming to my home for dinner tonight. I've got chefs coming in like 2 hours, and I'll be wearing the same t-shirt and probably not shaved. But one of my kids came up, he goes, "Can I have a friend over tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got like 8 COOs coming for dinner." He goes, "Well, can I eat too?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, like you live here, like of course." And I just think that that's so much more normal in building that culture. Do you allow your team to know you, like outside of Rick and Charles? Yeah.
I think we all know each other. I mean, again, like I think a really important thing is to know, at Persona and in general, is just to be like, you don't know everything about everyone. And especially during COVID, that's kind of been thrown into relief, right? You don't know what everyone's situation is. And so everyone needs to be respectful of everyone else's comfort limits, right? Or what they're comfortable doing.
Until your first Burning Man, at which point it's all bets are off, right?
But I do think actually everyone is able to, or what we encourage is bringing your whole self to work, and really just recognizing that people are people, that it is, one of the first things we did, actually, even though we were only like 6 people, is we agreed that parental leave would be 16 weeks, which people were like, that's crazy for a startup. And we were like, that is the bare minimum that what we should be doing. And I remember it because one of our first engineers, they were expecting a baby and he was really stressed. And I could tell that he was thinking like, am I going to get in trouble because I want to be with my family and the baby? And that's why we put this policy. We made it all formal and said like, no, this is absolutely what you should be doing. And if you want to take more time, like everyone. I think we definitely try. And, I'm sure we could do better. I'm sure there's more to do.
That's a huge step though, that most companies it doesn't even come up in their discussion, let alone the first person you did it for was a male, which is even more progressive, right? Like I almost said how Canadian of you to go 16 weeks, but to do that, that's really strong.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and that's another thing that I will say, that's another reason I kind of knew I found my people with Rick and Charles when I was talking to them for, a long time before I actually joined, was that I thought maybe I would get a lot of pushback on that kind of thing. I want this to be a safe space. I want people to feel like they can be themselves. And there was, they were totally on the same page day one, that was actually super important to making people happy at work. Like that's a big thing for us is, you can have lots of jobs where you are going to make a lot of money or have like amazing work-life balance, and happiness and actually having fun at work is not always part of that.
Yeah.
And we want it to be somewhere like you actually want to be here. You are happy and having fun every day. And I will say, even though it sounds cheesy, I have fun every day at Persona.
Except one day. When was there? There must have been one hard day in the 2.5 years.
Oh no, there have been many hard days. Okay, there have been many hard days.
What have been the tough times? What did you guys have to go through? That it's kind of the lessons from the edge, or what? Where did you go where you were like, what were some of the oh shit moments that you got through?
That's a good question. I mean,
yeah, that one.
COVID has been terrible, or COVID has been difficult, for everyone. we were kind of like really humbled by it because we were walking around before COVID saying, we don't ever want to be remote. We're all in person. And then COVID hit and suddenly we were all remote.
Wow.
And all fully distributed when we had been so
tight. Yeah. You were like a tight culture.
And we kind of kept emphasizing it, saying like, oh, well, it wouldn't work if we were going to be distributed. And then suddenly we were like, oh crap, we have to make it work. And I think like that was a really humbling thing for us to realize, like, you know, we need to make it work, and we can't just rely on all the things that we thought were going to be possible before COVID.
Yeah. Are you going back to a, office-based culture, or are you going to be staying remote? Are you hybrid?
We're going to do hybrid. We're going to do hybrid, like have an office that people can go into, but it's not, before the expectation was everyone would be in the office. And now we've not only made remote hires, but also even if you're in the Bay Area, there's much more flexibility.
We were just speaking about this with this group earlier as well. Did you have the culture where it was like a 9 to 5-ish kind of culture, or was it just,
never.
Or was it just we're like a hub of energy and activity and you can come and go whenever you want, but we're always working together? It was more of the latter, it sounds like.
Totally the latter.
Okay. And now how are you, and what are you doing to build the culture, the cult, right? What are you doing to build that culture now that you're more distributed or hybrid? Are there systems or any specific tactical things you're doing to keep that culture and energy and team together?
That's a good question. Well, we've been trying new things, like different things on Zoom chats, having kind of Zoom activities that are very suited for Zoom in particular.
Yeah.
And just enabling people to, if they can, get together safely outside, especially, like enabling them and empowering them to do that. But no, we don't really have specific, to be honest, we don't have specific systems in place.
Nothing yet.
We'll really need to we'll need to work on that.
I coached a company years ago called Acceleration Partners, and they've got about 140 employees, and they're 100% remote and always have been. And they ranked as the number 3 company to work for on Glassdoor last year.
Wow.
So super strong cult, right? And digital, lots of techies. And they've had to work really, really hard at it because culture was so important to them. But the CEO from day one was like, but there's no freaking way I'm going into an office. But he wanted like that Google kind of culture without the inner office. So you do have to work at it for sure. My sister started a company in COVID called Jam. And I just put a link in the notes, Jam Group Events or Workplay Jam, but they run online interactive fun events for companies. They're doing it all over the world. And she's just hit 7 figures in her first 8 months. Yeah, she's crushing it. It's kind of cool. And they're actually legitimately super fun. I've run some for the CO Alliance, and I'm not pitching you. I thought of it as I was asking the question. So what have you had to grow at as a CO, and how many employees do you have now?
We have 80.
80. So real company, 80 employees. You've raised 50 million in funding. This is not a small company anymore. You're not quite at the politics stage yet, where you hit, I think, at 100. Right, at 100 employees, you tend to get political. Or do you have some politics creeping in yet?
No, we don't. But I'm laughing because I agree with you. It's we're in this beautiful, magical phase. Yeah, it's like the buttery haze phase of dating, right? Everything's great. I love him so much. Everything's good until he just, he leaves shit lying around the house. I think it's between 100 and 300 employees. The politics starts to creep in the company, but you're running a real business with 80 employees. How have you had to change and adapt as a leader from kind of go from 3 to 10, 10 to 30, and 30 to 80? How have you been different in those 3 different sections? From 3 to 10, when you were building a management team, how did you have to adapt? Well, that 3 to 10 phase was what we were talking about earlier. Just everyone's doing everything. I did every single sales call. I mean, hell, Rick was in every single sales call. And we were all, I knew everything that was happening on the roadmap because we talked about it every day and we could, right? And then 10 to 30.
So you're hiring your first management team at the 30, right?
True. But 10 to 30 was it wasn't that different because we've been fortunate in that we've been growing so much from a customer perspective that even then I still did every single sales call. I knew every customer, and even though we were hiring, we got lead for customer success, a lead for a couple salespeople. It was still very much like, I think I could do like everything from very in the weeds to, okay, let's talk about the board deck or the investors deck, blah, blah, blah. And then I think the real change was after 30, because now they were starting to build out their teams.
Yep.
And then I was trying to figure out, okay, more about how do we onboard these people better? How do we enable them? And then also we started having more conversations about hiring, and that became more of a
more strategic.
Yeah. And now it's different again because I don't know every single person that works at Persona, which is wild to me.
Right.
It feels very odd. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to get to know. I still think I can.
It stops between 100 and 300. You can't, and then you get to the point where you don't even know what they do. Let alone, it's not only do I like. It's not only like, who are you? Like, do you work here? And now that's really weird times then.
Oh my God, I can't imagine that because
I was COO at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We had 3,000 employees system wide. We had 248 at the head office, and I was sitting talking to a guy in an elevator. And then he goes, "Oh, do you work here?" And I was like, "It's okay, dude. Yeah, I've been here for a long fucking time.
Amazing.
Yeah, I work here. Yep.
You're like, I've done some stuff here. Yep.
Yeah, been around. Yep. Oh my gosh, you're Cameron. Yeah, I'm Cameron. So have you had to change then your skill set? Have you had to slow down? Have you had to become less entrepreneurial again, or do you just stick core to what you're doing? And are you more evolving than having to change?
Good question. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot of stuff about myself, and I'm learning a lot every day. But I do think, I'm pretty good at prioritizing. I will say the challenge of Persona so far, or most recently, is how good can you be at prioritizing, and how much more kind of ruthless can you be? And I'm realizing I need to get even better. I certainly do, and realize, okay, what are the most, what's the highest and best use of my time? Or what are the things that only uniquely I can do? Because there are a lot of things where my impulse is still like, I want to be in there. I want to be in that customer conversation. I want to read every single document about that customer. I want to read every slide about the roadmap. And there are literally no longer enough hours in the day for me to do that.
It's impossible.
Right.
So what have you boiled, or what are you starting to boil down to the critical few areas that are kind of your unique ability as a leader?
I think,
or that give you the most energy?
I still love scouting for people, for new personas. I love it. I've loved it since day one, and I still love it. And that is certainly something that there's a whole team now behind talent and recruiting, and they're amazing. And so it's certainly not just me, but I still love that because I feel like I can really back up what I say about the company. I'm not bullshitting. I'm not selling things that I don't really feel or believe, or I'm like, oh, is that true? It's kind of like a salesperson who has a really good product.
I think you also have a very innate understanding of the needs of the company as well. And you can see it, like, the opportunity, or the person when you see it, because you're so clear on, I feel like you're very, very clear on the company, and you can see the round peg when you need it.
I agree. I think that is actually something I really enjoy, and something I do feel like I can bring to the company because I've been here, and because, I just get so much energy from that. And that is seriously still the best part of my job for sure is just figuring out, hey, okay, what do we need? Could that person be good for it? What are their strengths? What are their areas of growth? That kind of thing. I love that kind of thing.
Where does Christy need to improve? If Rick or Charles were to sit down and say, or let's not even bring them into the conversation. If you were to self-assess, or your team was to give you an assessment, where would they say that you need to improve, or what do you know you're improving on or working on right now?
Honestly, it goes back to that impulse I have to want to know every detail. I need to not only let go, but also I think I need to realize, like, not everyone's going to know every detail on my team either.
Yeah.
And that's just something that's going to happen because we're moving so fast. I was telling someone the other day, that is something I have really learned about myself, and I do need to work on, is it's two sides of one coin in my mind. One side is I have very high expectations.
Yeah.
And I like that because I think that setting the bar high is good for a startup and it's good for attracting the right talent. But the flip side of it is sometimes I'm really focused on these like small things that, you know what, we can't know everything. We can't do all that because we got to move.
Yeah.
We got to 80-20 it